Hey everybody, my name is Steven and welcome back to the Storytime channel. Without wasting any time, let's get into our stories of the day. Track me? Sure, I will comply, but not easy. So my former workplace is trying to get a hold of me about 1.5 years after I quit. They gave me a job offer that turned out to be a whole other job. Bad for them. It seems that they have a problem with the Skatteverket, the Swedish IRS. It all started one day when the company told me they were installing GNSS tracking in our vehicles. They blamed Skatteverket wanting to know that we did not use them when off the clock. Well, that's kinda true, but in fact, Skatteverket only wanted to know if we did, and if so, how much. When I pointed this out to my boss, he went off on an angry monologue, stating that us low-level workers couldn't be trusted. And finishing with that all we did was trifle away our work hours. So the statement from the company was that they had no intent to follow us in real time was BS. The problem for the company was that our union had already banned the practice of following us in real time with a few exceptions. The tracking device installed was easy to Google and thereby even easier to figure out how to manipulate. The biggest concern was it was tamper-proof, so no on opening it up. Well, since it used GPS/GLONASS as the only source for positioning, there was a simple bypass. After speaking to an old colleague of mine from the military, I ordered an antenna, 150 USD, a Raspberry Pi, got my former colleague to find a good software, and created a .gpx with a track going on every road in Malta. Thereafter, I set the device to start via the 12 volts in the car and to simply tell the shielded tracker that I was driving around in Malta. The effect didn't take long to show. After a week, the boss told me my vehicle needed service. It did not. I knew when service was due. Another week goes by and it suddenly needs something else. Can't remember. Both times they needed the car to go to another city even though our regular service station was in our town. After a month I got another car. The company blamed it on something with the lease. After that, they didn't say anything at all to me about cars or anything else until the day I quit. Last day there, when dropping off my last things, the boss straight out asked me what I had done since everyone else's tracker seemed to work properly. I told him I had no idea what he was talking about, went outside and laughed my butt off. Leaving the premise, I meet a coworker who has always been really nice to me. So for about 2 boxes of snus, he got the setup from me. Until today, I thought this would be a petty revenge on a company that tried to illegally follow my whereabouts. But apparently they had sent in our tracks to Skatteverket. And, well, they had some questions. Either their record were lies and they needed to go over all the records from the company, or they had to get all the paperwork for doing business abroad in before July. The rumor spread real quick and now the union also has a couple of questions. Somewhere along the lines of, so you can track your workers in real time? We haven't signed off on this. In conclusion, had they only been upfront and told everyone what they were planning and got the union in on it, I wouldn't have cared. Now they chose the other way of doing things. So how would you feel if you knew that your job was trying to basically watch where you were at all times in your work vehicle? Let me know in the comments section down below. Restaurant scams me for fake Google reviews. I burn their Google reviews page/reputation to the ground and get the media to cover it. Hi folks, first post here, thought it would definitely fit. So about a month ago I applied for a sushi restaurant called Yoshi's and I got a text from their hiring manager. And we chatted about my availability, location, start date, yada yada. She then asked me to write a review of general Japanese food to show I knew what I was talking about and could upsell customers. Fine, I write a long review and sent it to her. She then sends me a tiny link URL and tells me to post it there before I would be invited for an interview. I click it and what do you know? It's the Google page for a whole different restaurant all the way across the city. So I read the reviews and they had done this to 30 or so people in the last 2 weeks at the different locations franchised to the same crazy owner. I was pissed to say the least. This happened peak COVID in my state. People are unemployed at staggering rates, struggling to feed their families, and these a-holes are scamming potential hires for fake reviews. Being unemployed, I had some time on my hands, so I screenshotted our convo and posted it all over social media. They went from 3.4 to 1.2 in a few hours with more than 70 new reviews about their crappy behavior. I was satisfied with that. and report to the general attorney here. But then I noticed the owner had managed to get all the reviews removed, so at that point I went full nuclear. I contacted every media outlet, reported to them every oversight board, emailed corporate about it, and reported them to Google. I managed to get one of our local news outlets to cover it, and Google ended up removing all of their reviews altogether. Scam me and countless others during a global pandemic? I ruined your business's reputation for your bad behavior. I feel like the whole system of reviews in this modern day is it's such a weird system that's so full of exploitation and whatnot. It's kind of unfortunate that you have to rely so much on these things, but I don't really know a better alternative. My dad had an affair with his BFF's wife. Let's call her Jane. She claimed she was pretty much in love with my father, and of course, her husband didn't know. I found out because once I got a Facebook Messenger message from a fake account telling me that my father was banging his BFF's wife. I actually didn't care. My parents are divorced since 2005. The problem was that someone unknown was sending my mother text messages telling her to leave my father alone and many offensive things. We let it slide for a while, but then those anonymous text messages became a daily thing. We confronted my dad and he confessed that he was sleeping with Jane, but he said she was not the one sending the messages. He said he was sure because Jane's husband was also getting those messages. My dad was practically blinded by her manipulations, and my mom and I had a really strong hunch that it was her. My dad got so mad after we suggested it that he stopped speaking to me and my mom for a while. I also got mad, but much more offended because he would not believe me. I mean, I had no reason to lie to him. Still, I let that all slide. But then I got another anonymous message offending me, telling me I was just like my mother, and that's why my boyfriend had dumped me, and that we would be alone for the rest of our lives and things like that. Then I got really mad. I went to the cyber police, is a thing where I'm from, and they tracked the source of the anonymous messages. It turns out that it was her, and she was also sending her husband messages because she was so desperate for the truth to come out so she could be with my father. Although I think that just confronting her husband would have been better, what she really wanted was to distance my father from me and my mom. She was messing with my family, so I decided to mess with hers and sent the proof to her husband and her sons that she was behind the anonymous messages and that she was, in fact, sleeping with my dad. I also showed my dad the proof and exposed her on Facebook. She was a saleswoman, so it did affect her. Her sons and her husband were so mad at her, she had to move out of her house, and my dad broke up with her as well. She was left alone, but I feel like that's what she deserved. So not only was she cheating, but she was trying to really manipulate and, bother people. She was trying to be a homewrecker, even though these people were separated. I don't understand what she was trying to get out of it. You want to invade my space with your car while I wait for a tow truck? Hope you didn't have to rush off. This happened this afternoon. Today was balls hot, and between my car's AC not working and my body's habit of sweating puddles in anything over 70 degrees, my mood was already a bit thin. I was picking up some items from Home Depot and parked halfway in a quarter-full parking lot, plenty of open spaces around. I haven't gone to the store much in the past few months, so while I was trying to remember the PPE order of operations, I absent-mindedly let my keys slip from my lap to the cup holder. I'm all kitted up and go get my stuff from the lockers and head back to the car. I start patting my pockets and feel that little ball of fear rolling around the pit of my stomach. I started walking faster, and as I get to my car, I see my keys in the cup holder. I'm standing there staring through the window while sweating buckets from a 3-minute walk, annoyed, but I contact roadside and get a truck dispatched quickly. As I am leaning against the front of my car, a van comes down the lane and on the opposite row and pulls into the right spot in front of my car. As the driver starts pulling closer to my legs, I shout, "Hold it," and put my hand out. She stops the van about 1.5 feet away from me and looks pissy, like hitting me would have inconvenienced her plans for the day. I look around at the 9 other open spots all next to or behind her in the area and gesture towards them. She gestures at me and mouths, "Why?" I guess she was asking me why I'm standing there, and despite it not being any of her darn business, say I'm locked out of my car. She sits in her car for 5 minutes just adding to the heat around me while I mess around on my phone. Eventually she gets out, scowls at me and goes inside. About 20 minutes after she went in, my tow truck shows up, but it's on the lane opposite me. I was feeling a bit petty, so I stopped the guy right behind the van, not thinking anything would have come of it. Well, right as he goes to get the tools, van lady comes out of the store. She was lividly muttering to herself as she gets in her car and turns it on. I explain the basics of the situation, and he looks around at all the other still open spots in sheer confusion when a poop-eating grin comes across his face. He starts opening the door, taking a few extra minutes to make sure he does it right, and then has me sit in his air-conditioned cab while he fills out an order form because his phone was acting up. The dude probably took an extra 10 minutes to do his job while van lady is stewing in her annoyance. I appreciated the solidarity and threw him a few extra bucks for the service. He then made sure I got to leave first before rolling out. Dear tow truck guy, you rock. Edit some quick answers. I locked my door by hitting the door lock button on the door upon exiting the car. I may start using the key to lock, but I hate that darn confirmation honk the car gives. I didn't call a tow truck, I contacted my insurance, who contacted a tow company who had a driver dispatched with door opening tools. In parking lots, there are usually 2 sets of parking spaces separated by a line. I was parked away from every other car. She decided to park in the space right in front of my car and was driving towards my legs. Not sure how much more clearer I can make that. 2 positives. 1, OP got a little bit of payback against this lady that seemed to be so inconvenienced by his standing there. The second being, because OP made this post, they found out that it's possible to turn off the honking sound when locking the car. So hopefully they won't ever end up in this situation again. Use my Netflix account for free? Have an ugly profile pic? Okay, so this is truly a very small victory. So I got the highest tier of Netflix account, so I have the option to have 5 profiles. I have one for me, one for the kids, one for my wife, one as a joint profile for me and my wife, and the last one is for guests, basically freeloaders. One of the things you can do with Netflix is change the avatar of each profile, which I did for each account while leaving the guest account one of the defaults. My sister-in-law, crazy, rude, violent, just really a bad person, got permission from my wife to use the guest account, which I didn't mind as long as she only uses the guest account so she doesn't mess up my viewing stats, and she understands she shares the account with more people. One day I've noticed that she changed the profile picture of the guest account to some actress from some show she was watching, and for some reason it really annoyed me. So, like the mature adult that I am, I've changed the profile photo to some ugly creature from some other show. Such a stupid little victory. If you're going to use my account for free, you will use the ugly profile. Every few weeks she will try to change the pic again so I know she cares, but I will quickly notice and change it to something even uglier. The last one was the Demogorgon from Stranger Things. It's really petty and small, but it's fun to imagine her frustration to have to choose some ugly creature as the account she uses. It's petty and it's annoying, but I can imagine it does bother her every time she has to go to Netflix because she keeps trying to update it. Steal my beach spot? Enjoy trying to leave? So a little background. On many Texas beaches, you drive right out on the beach and park along the shore and enjoy your day. Where I grew up, we did the same, but you needed a 4x4 because the sand was soft and you would get stuck otherwise. Many Texas beaches are hard packed, and it amazes me to see sedans and small crossovers driving on the beach. On to the story. I was on the beach with my family when the inevitable bowel movements need to happen with my 6-year-old. The drive back to the restrooms is about a mile, so we hop in the truck and make our way back while my wife and 9-year-old stay behind with our canopy and beach stuff. When I returned, there was a little CRV or RAV4 type car parked pretty darn close to where I had originally set my truck up. My wife said she told the man driving that I had just run down to the restroom and I'd be right back, asking if he could move down a little, and he literally shrugged her off. On to the pettiness. If he wasn't in the mood for discussion, I figured passive-aggressive was the way to go. I pulled my truck back into the exact spot it had been before I left. This meant the other guy could not get into his passenger side doors. I was parked parallel to the shoreline, so I was good. Deciding I hadn't really messed his day up enough, when I left, I had made sure to spin my tires right behind his car to create soft sand and rough terrain. When I was done, there was little chance his car was going to make it out of his spot without a tow. Lesson: don't shrug off my wife. All I can say is dad material. Won't pronounce my name correctly? Okay, suit yourself. So when I was in the 3rd grade, think 8 years old, I had this teacher who was retiring at the end of the year and knew it. She decided that she didn't like me for some reason. So I have a very popular white girl name. For the sake of anonymity, I'm gonna use a fake name here. Let's say my name is Bailey, pronounced Bailey. Pretty straightforward, right? Well, this teacher always pronounced it Bali. It hurt because I was like 8 and wanted to be called my own name. When I asked her why she pronounced my name wrong, she said it was because of her accent. Okay, fair. However, I had a classmate named Kaylee. Somehow that accent disappeared and she was able to pronounce her name perfectly fine. Once I heard her call Kaylee by her proper name, I went right up to her with all my 8-year-old bravery and asked her why she wouldn't say my name right, but would say hers right. She didn't answer me, like legitimately ignored me. Okay, my turn. So this teacher's last name was something like Tainer. That was the way it was pronounced. And on the first day of that year, she made sure that we knew it was pronounced Tainer and not Tonner or Tanner. So guess who was called Mrs. Tonner for the rest of the year? The teacher who called me Bali. Oh, and as an added layer of BS, when we had parent-teacher conferences, she pronounced my name correctly. Interesting. Here I am, really wondering what kind of person it takes to have no influenced reason to hold a grudge against an 8-year-old. They're just a child and they didn't do anything and they're your student. But with that being said, that's all the stories we have for today. So what I want to know is, which of these stories was your personal favorite and why? Let me know which story was your personal favorite in the comments section down below. And thank you all so very much for watching and listening to the Storytime channel. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing and don't forget to turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video from the Storytime channel. Thank you all again for watching and listening to today's stories on the Storytime channel.